Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we getting on? Welcome to a brand new camp build. So today we are taking a look at the Last Stand prefab, complete with its crash plane section that is available on the Atomic Shop at the moment. So yeah, this is a brand new prefab that's up on the Atomic Shop at the moment. It's called Last Stand, which is a bit weird. Not quite sure what the indication of the name is there. There's a lot of free state stuff going around at the moment, so probably a few people going down that road with it. But basically we've got a kind of industrial lower section, it's a very industrial vibe with the metal walls and stuff, with a section of crash plane on the top. So, let's have a look at where we are. We are down here, right at the bottom of the ash heap, and almost back into a kind of forest region, really. Because we're halfway up this line of mountains here. You can sort of see what we're close to in terms of markers on the map. And coming up from sort of those bottom few locations, you approach this place more or less from the eastern side and kind of come up the hillside that way. And it's like a nice flat plateau at the top, which is quite an unusual place to build. Quite cool. I've never been here before, but way off the beaten path. So, here is my camp. And as you can probably see, aside from the junk walls, it's not a vast amount of building per se, because this prefab is pretty big, and there's a lot of room inside it, so you kind of don't need anything else. Once you've got all the essentials in, everything else is just kind of flavour, so rather than kind of building pointless stuff and decorating it with just repeat stuff, I thought we'd just stick a nice big fortified wall around the outside. I've tried to use a few bits and pieces here that I haven't used before, or at least recently anyway, and textured things up a little bit more, which I'm quite pleased with. So we've got this bridge piece here, which is from a returning set, the Wildwood Den set actually. It's based on the bridge that's next to the Wayward. Quite happy with using that. I didn't pick it up originally because I forget why. I didn't think I was going to use it, but a lot of people have done this sort of entranceway with it. Thought I'd do one myself. It's on the Atomic Shop cheap at the moment, or at least it was for me anyway, so yeah, I thought I'd pick it up. Pittsburgh catwalks there that are available from Giuseppe, I believe. Make for fun junk walls, and the corners make for great guard posts as well, so I thought I'd go down that road and mix things up, add a bit of extra detail, texture, change things up, make it a bit different. Seeing as No Respawn's kindly reminded us all that those things exist recently, so I thought I'd take advantage. Yeah, got a few little extra bits of detail down the side here as well, and it's like sort of doubled up layers of fences there, just so that it's got a bit more going on. It's a bit more interesting to look at. It's a bit thicker and more substantial. And it has the added bonus that if anything shoots at it, which they do actually tend to do here, then there's extra layers they've got to break through in order to get in. And there we go. Quite happy with that. So yeah, nice bit of detail out front, and a nice easy entrance to go with here. It's worth pushing your camp unit when you actually initially place it down, sort of a bit further back than perhaps I did. So quite a long way back, really, if you can, because I have a habit of spawning in right on the edge of a cliff, and it's a bit iffy. So, it's one drawback to this spot. It was basically placed in what is the middle of this central space here. So the porch thing here that we've got, the bridge piece, rather, has a nice size. It's basically the same size as a single foundation, so most gates and stuff fit quite nicely over the front of it. My stairs are slightly misaligned, so actually the only one that fit perfectly was that encampment gate, but it tucks nicely between the edges, so I was quite happy to use that. A few extra bits of decoration around here, some plushies, a bit of scrap and stuff. Decided to put my quest posters in the entranceway as well. Anybody who needs to pick up those quest lines, we'll head on inside. So as I say, this prefab is big and has basically room inside it for everything you need, and I could probably squeeze a few extra things in there if I'd really tried, so I really wouldn't have needed this outside space, but I wanted to have an outside space. I always do. So, it's a nice kind of organic shape, kind of, it's not square, it's not circular, and I kind of like that about this space. With a few bits and pieces of decoration around, and a few of the essentials out here as well, in terms of symptomatic of food and stuff. And it provides nice guard posts as well, so when anything comes up from that direction down there, I can generally defend the place quite well. Yeah, I do kind of like this outside area. It's kind of the most homely bit of the camp in a way. My collection there's standing on my punji board that I was hoping would keep him inside the main part of the camp, but unfortunately it doesn't, so what can you do? He does stay in here, but the punji board has nothing to do with it. Nice little bit of decoration in that corner. It was kind of blank space and awkward to place things in down there. The ground kind of starts to fall away and the surface is a bit weird for placing things on. So it was a bit annoying, that corner, but I got it decorated up quite nicely. Looking over towards the east there, you can just about see the two mansions in the top corner. That's where the main way up to this place is if you're coming in on foot, and also where most of the attacks come from. There's basically nowhere else the creatures can come at you from, so other than spawning directly on the camp unit, of course, which they do sometimes. We use the merge glitch just to combine those two fireplaces to create a complete circle rather than semicircles. I thought filling up the centre space would be quite nice there. A few essentials around, like my collector on there. That one really does need to be outside, so I suppose it did need some outside space for that. Nice mixture of textures for the walls. There goes my punji board, courtesy of the Collectron. I'll have a little look up at the top of this guard post here, which I've made, as I say, out of the Pittsburgh scaffolding. Definitely a good set, this. If you want a thick kind of junk wall, they're really good for that, and then you can dress them up. Or you can use the corner ones, as long as you rotate them the right way around anyway, for sort of guard posts and stuff, and they work quite well. The straight ones don't work so well for guard posts because the railings on both sides kind of get in the way a bit, but corner ones, those do work quite nicely. So here's the prefab. I've dressed it up quite a bit, and you can kind of see it. It's a decent size there, and the space inside is quite cool. It's got a very rusted metal industrial vibe, which is, to be honest, not really my thing. But for those who are into that kind of scrappy, I like homely scrappy. This is a bit more industrial scrappy. For those who like that sort of thing, it's certainly there. It doesn't sink down all that far, really. The ground here is not quite flat, so it could go a little bit lower than it is, this prefab, but it still doesn't go all that low anyway. So that is a thing to bear in mind, is that you are going to have to come up into it a little bit, which may or may not bother you, but I would like it to sink down a little bit lower, personally. This first room here, we've got basically set up as my vending room, my shop. And it's a nice entranceway, it's easy for people to find, easy-ish. And got a little bit of decoration out here. I feel like there's room to put a bit more decoration maybe in here. I've got maybe a quarter or so of the build budget left. But at the same time, I was kind of not feeling overdoing it. And there does come a point, particularly with wall decoration, when you're really repeating yourself, so I'm fairly happy with how this looks. It's certainly busy enough, and looks alright. But yeah, there's something weird about this that I can't quite put my finger on. The walls look a lot like the new Helvetia set, their internal texture, and then you've got the basic concrete foundation style floors, and they're very industrial and beaten up. And yeah, it just doesn't quite do it for me. I don't know. But coming to the next room up here, this is where I put most of my crafting stuff, my main crafting room, and you see I've gone crazy trying to decorate up the walls here. Again, I could have crammed loads more into the little gaps and stuff, but repetition. Yeah, I like it mostly, but the industrial thing, it's not for me. The floor and the walls kind of go well together, and it's got a very distinct vibe, which is one of the reasons I decided to make this my crafting space. That and the fact it's reasonably near the entrance, so I don't have to kind of battle my way all the way up to where the crafting space would be if it was at the top. But yeah, it's got the right vibe, tucked everything in. This space is a decent size, but it's not huge, so you might need to spread your crafting out a bit around a few rooms or whatever else you're doing. Turn this into a living space, you'll fit everything in, but then yeah, you're left with the kind of weird industrial walls in your living space, which is not my thing. Yeah, it's definitely a distinct mood to this particular prefab, which is either going to be up your alley or it's not, I suppose. The view out here is not bad. I did have to put a rock and a tree down just behind the thing, because there was one tree that was kind of had quite long branches that were clipping into the back of the prefab there. I did want to push it back, so replaced that. Posters on the outside wall here just to kind of break up the surface a bit more. Not that many people are going to see the back of this camp, but still. So up on the balcony here, I've put a whole bunch of different workbenches. This is all my chemistry and brewing stuff, just because, well, you don't really want that stuff in an enclosed space where you're going to breathe all the fumes now, do you? So put those out here. You can make it a nice little seating area if you wanted, I think, as well. It worked well for that. Got my power armor station up here as well. It fit perfectly in that gap, so kind of had to. There's a couple of things I'm not completely sold on up here with this particular level. Occasionally that roof is a bit finicky there about putting things underneath it if they're too tall. It's mostly not too bad, but just occasionally. And around the very edges of the floor here, for some reason the very edges, outer edges, don't want things to place on very well, which is a bit odd. It'll tend to sink down into it rather than sort of stay on the level. It can be a bit of a pain there. Nice view from the top there. You really get the sense of the shape of the outer area. The other thing is you're weirdly quite easy to clip things into the fence on that level as well. So on this little level, I've got a fence here, and this is probably one of my least favourite things, is that I wish these plywood boards stuck out a bit further, because it's a very narrow gap there. If I put a fence along the edge of this so I don't fall off, I can't get through if I extend it any further than it currently is there. Which is a bit of a problem, because there's definitely a tendency there to kind of fall off. That gap is very, very small, so you have to be quite careful if you don't want to go falling down. Which is not the end of the world, unless you put it right on the edge of a cliff, I suppose. But you could do with a slightly bigger bit of plywood there, so you've got a bit more room to turn the corner. But we'll go through my ship doors that I put on there and have a look around at the living space. I've kind of got a mix of what I usually do with something a little bit different at the same time on this one. So nice cosy little sleeping area with somewhere to sit and read. Be quite like, plenty of plushies. I've gone for a lot of the movie posters around in here to give it a bit more of that homely vibe. If you've seen or used the Flying Fortress prefab, which is the other crash plane we have, then the internal space on this and the walls and stuff and the floor too are basically the same as that, but slightly different size because it's smaller in here. But yeah, I wanted to dress it up a lot because metal walls not that homely, you know, and I'm quite happy with it. Got the organ in the corner there. Again, I wanted to do something a bit different. I thought about having a kitchen space down here, maybe a sitting room space, but I kind of do that a lot, so I thought squeeze the organ in, make a bit of a music space and a bit of a display, and we'll put the cooking station downstairs on the fireplace outside. So that's what I did, and then it changes things up a little bit. Got my coffee machine up there because, you know, you want it where you can reach it conveniently when you roll out of bed. I do quite like these doors. They're fun. They're a bit more interesting than the circus ones. They take up very little room, which is good. If we want something that really does not take up much space, they're handy for that. Although they only snap onto the ship prefab, which is obviously what they come with, so you do have to put something else in and then swap them out to make them go in place, which is certainly viable. Yeah. Put a few extra bits on here just for kind of a little bit of flavour and decoration as well, but I didn't want to block the passageway through because you know, you want to be able to pass through reasonably conveniently there, I think. So it's kind of staggered from the stairs to the bottom of the ramp there, so that kind of limits your positioning of things a little bit. Not in a problematic way, but still. Yeah, with this fermenter there on the corner, I had to blueprint that in order to place it in, because it kept wanting to sink into the surface and would not place if it wasn't blueprinted, which was slightly annoying. There's a couple of things I had to do that with, but it's not the end of the world. Yeah, all in all, if you like a really industrial vibe and want something that's kind of beaten up in that direction as opposed to a bit more of a homely kind of a vibe, and this works really, really well. It's basically pretty well put together prefab, as I say. There's a couple of little bits around the edges there that are not perfect, but on the whole, it's a well put together prefab, and there's loads of space in it, and it's pretty striking. I do like the plain section on the top, but I think a personal taste thing more than anything else for me on this. Yeah, that is a big blank wall there, so I decided the game boards would go quite nicely on there, and it would kind of cover up the otherwise rusted metal surface whilst adding a splash of colour. Now, close off the laser gate, head back down. I'd like to have a little bit of place to kind of sit, chill out and wait if you need to wait for the vendor when people come around, as well as making sure I've got access to my scrap box and stuff, nice, quick and easy when I come back, and places for people to drop off anything they want to put in their stash if they buy stuff as well. So it worked out quite nicely in there. Nice little space. I like that kind of view over there where all the plants and stuff are as well. It's nice, colourful, and interesting little display area. I think it looks cool. I had to squeeze in some of the essentials there, toilet and the shower. Use the junkyard fountain as well, which I don't often remember. It comes from Hunt for the Treasure Hunter, that thing. Get a decent look at the shape of this thing. It's a good prefab. Definitely a good prefab. Just not quite my cup of tea. Yeah, all in all, there's like a whole bunch of little bits about this camp that I'm quite pleased with. More than the overall thing, I think. But we all have those days, I think. Yeah, I definitely like that little sort of dressed up display there with the plants and stuff. It looks nice. Nearest thing this place could have to a garden. The junkyard fountain, as I say there, that I don't use often, provides dirty water, I think that thing does. Which is very handy to have if your camp's not near any water. So if you pick that up, useful to use. There we go. Hope you guys found this useful and informative and liked having a little look around that one. If you did, please consider dropping subs and likes. I very much appreciate it. Down below, as always, social media links, merch store, channel memberships if you'd like to support the channel in that way. I hugely appreciate it and it massively helps out. And if you get a chance to join us for live streams as well, we are, of course, playing Fallout and we're playing Metro Exodus, which has been good fun. And keep an eye out for the Starfield stuff as well. Good fun there, too. But for now, thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to speaking to you all very, very soon.